General Hospital spoilers tease that one of the latest haunting storylines silently infiltrating every corner of Port Charles originates from a very familiar name, Monica Quartermaine. Over the years, Monica has been a pillar, a shield protecting a famous, scandal-ridden, and powerful family. But as age and illness began to take their toll on her, everything seemed to start crumbling. And it is during this fragile time that a secret but profound change took place. Monica's will, which had long been considered unchangeable, was updated. What stunned many was that two children, Wiley Corinthos and Amelia Corinthos, who were still too young to understand what was happening, were suddenly included as key beneficiaries. Monica's decision to leave part of her vast fortune to Wiley and Amelia wasn't just an act of affection for her great-grandchildren, but also the beginning of a dangerous power struggle that no one anticipated. Especially when the first person to learn of this change was Drew Kane, the man who was becoming increasingly unpredictable and dangerous. Drew doesn't see Wiley and Amelia as children who need protection. To him, they are the keys, the leverage he needs to rise up and take control of an empire he has always stood on the fringes of. And when he learns that Monica has designated a large portion of her estate, including ownership of real estate, shares in ELQ, and control of her legacy, to be divided among her great-grandchildren, Drew immediately realizes that whoever controls Wiley and Amelia will control the future of the Quartermaine family. From there, an obsession begins to form in Drew's mind. Not an obsession with responsibility, but with ambition. Not because he wants to protect them, but because he wants to own them. Drew's plan starts subtly. He approaches Willow with the image of a caring father, a trustworthy friend, a family member always ready to support. But behind that warm gaze is every step carefully calculated. Each piece of advice, each hug of encouragement, every suggestion about preparing for the future, is arranged to lead Willow into granting him guardianship rights. Drew isn't rushing. He knows that to get Wiley and Amelia, he needs to get past Willow, and to get past Willow, he has to make her believe it's in the best interest of her children. But the truth is the opposite. Drew doesn't need the children, he needs what they represent: power, legacy, influence. With his own daughter, Scout, also listed as a beneficiary, Drew understands that if he gains legal guardianship of Wiley and Amelia, he could combine the three parts of the estate to create a force no one in the Quartermaine family could match. He would become the most powerful voice, surpassing even Tracy Quartermaine, who has always seen Drew as an outsider. Monica may no longer be there emotionally, but Drew doesn't need emotion. He needs power. He needs prestige. And he needs Monica's entire legacy in his hands, even if it means turning the children into pawns in this dangerous game. The change in the will doesn't just create a subtle undercurrent, it creates an earthquake. And while the family hasn't had time to adjust to the new information, Drew has already begun to make his move. He doesn't show his urgency, but every action has a purpose. Each time he appears beside Willow, it's a step closer to his ultimate goal. And where Drew Kane is gradually turning himself into the only one with absolute power in a family all too familiar with chaos. And when the truth comes out, when everyone realizes that Drew's real goal isn't familial love but domination, it may be too late to save Wiley, Amelia, and the soul of Drew that is slowly decaying. Willow and Wiley are now seen as the holders of Michael Corinthos' precious inheritance, a legacy that not only holds immense financial value but also symbolizes an entire family. For years, Michael has been regarded as the rightful heir to the Corinthos and Quartermaine bloodlines, and the estate left to him, and to his son, Wiley, is a mark of power and trust. But in the increasingly dark landscape of Port Charles, a new storm is quietly approaching, and at the center of it is Drew Kane. With his increasingly dark thoughts and plans, Drew seems to have begun rethinking Willow's role. To him, Willow is no longer the woman who needs protection or persuasion. She is now just a pawn that has outlived its usefulness. A tool whose value has diminished. And when a pawn is no longer valuable, according to Drew's cold logic, it must be removed. Drew's attempt to get Willow to sign guardianship papers for Wiley and Amelia is no longer surprising. He has tried to insert himself into the heart of this family relationship by pretending to be supportive, sharing, and using Willow's trust at her most vulnerable moment. But if Willow's existence no longer serves the purpose of controlling the legacy, if she no longer provides an advantage for Drew to seize power, what will happen next? And the chilling answer is: Drew will change his target. The next one is Michael. In this cold and calculated plot, Drew understands that manipulating Willow's emotions no longer serves him much. Monica left part of her estate to the grandchildren and great-grandchildren, but the greatest and most powerful legacy is still in Michael's hands. He is the son, the father. The manager with direct influence over ELQ and everything Monica once controlled. Drew knows that only when Michael is removed from the equation can he truly have the opportunity to monopolize the entire inheritance Michael holds. But Drew doesn't want a public battle. He can't leave any traces. He needs an accident. A tragic event that could be seen as a misfortune, not a murder. And this makes everything even more dangerous. Drew has become so cunning, able to hide, mask his ambition with kind words, and choose the right moment to strike. Michael, who once trusted Drew as part of the family, is gradually falling into a trap he's unaware of. If Michael is killed, or disappears, his entire inheritance for Wiley and possibly even for Willow, if she's still alive, will immediately be transferred to the guardian of Wiley. And if Willow is also removed from the picture, as Drew has secretly planned, then he, as the only remaining one with legal guardianship of Wiley and Amelia, will become the sole owner of Michael's estate. It's a scenario that sends chills down anyone's spine. But for Drew, this is not a hypothetical. It's the plan. This is not a random change. This is a deliberate adjustment, a shock that will disrupt all the relationships within the Corinthos and Quartermain families. Drew is no longer the man who once fought for justice or loyalty. He is now a man willing to do anything, even kill someone he once called brother, to take what he believes the world has stolen from him. And what's even more terrifying is the silence before the storm. No one suspects Drew. No one is paying attention to his quiet but deliberate steps. But when Michael falls, and when Willow is left screaming in despair, it will be too late to save anything. Drew will have taken it all. And the children, Wiley and Amelia, are now the perfect excuse for him to solidify his absolute power. Drew is gradually becoming a living nightmare in Port Charles, and no one truly realizes it. With his calm demeanor, deep gaze, and words that seem full of responsibility, he still appears in the community as a trustworthy man, someone who can be relied upon when the family is in crisis. But behind that facade lies a mind growing increasingly unstable, a heart submerged in ambition, and a soul overshadowed by profound darkness. Drew is no longer the man who once fought for justice, honor, or what was right. He is now entirely driven by the obsession growing in his mind, the desire to control Monica's will and, at any cost, become the sole person to hold all the wealth she left behind. The madness is that Drew truly believes he deserves it all. After years of being dismissed and pushed to the edges by the very family he once longed to belong to, Drew no longer wants to stand behind anyone. No longer content with just a symbolic inheritance or pity. He wants everything: wealth, influence, voice, and power. And to achieve that, he begins to orchestrate a series of calculated moves. Starting with approaching Willow, then cleverly positioning himself as the guardian of Wiley and Amelia, and finally, silently turning his gaze toward Michael, who holds the largest portion of the inheritance and is the final obstacle standing between him and absolute power. For Drew, Willow had once been the initial anchor, a vulnerable, fragile woman in need of someone to rely on while Michael was distant and the family was in turmoil. Drew took advantage of this time to become the trustworthy figure, offering her a sense of safety, and gently guiding her to sign legal documents that seemed to be for future planning. But once Willow had fulfilled her role, once she could no longer help him move further, she became nothing more than an expendable piece in the chess game Drew was playing. He no longer needed her. The next and final target was Michael. Michael is the true heir, the one who holds the power and reputation that Drew craves. He is the one capable of protecting his wealth and children. The one who is not as easy to manipulate as Willow. And so, for Drew, Michael represents a danger. A barrier to be eliminated. But how can Drew eliminate Michael without raising suspicion? How can he take the life of a beloved man without leaving a trace? This is where Drew's mad ideas begin to form. He starts imagining an accident, an unexpected, unsuspected accident. Perhaps a car crash, a fall from a height, or even a staged robbery. He calculates the timing, plans the route, and starts observing Michael's routine, from his work commute to the way he returns home. Even the places he frequents with Wiley. In Drew's mind, Michael's death is not a tragedy. It's a solution. It's the event that will open the last door to Monica's will. Because if Michael dies, then the entire inheritance will be passed to Wiley, and the guardian of Wiley will be none other than Drew, the man Willow had blindly trusted. Drew understands that once Michael is gone, Willow will not have the strength to oppose him, especially as she becomes increasingly isolated from those closest to her. He also knows that Tracy will be furious, Carly will scream. But once everything is settled legally, no one will be able to reverse the situation. Once Drew gains custody of Wiley, Amelia, and Scout, he will possess the majority of the wealth Monica left to her grandchildren. At that point, no one can protest, and it will be too late. What is most terrifying is how Drew maintains his calm and polite demeanor throughout this process. He still calls Michael brother, still talks as if nothing has changed. Still gives Willow hugs and fake looks of encouragement, and continues to build a perfect image in front of those around him. But deep inside, a monster is silently taking its final steps. Waiting for the moment to break through the remaining barriers and seize everything it believes is rightfully its own. If Drew succeeds, the price will not only be Michael's life. It will be the total destruction of trust, of family bonds, and of everything that once kept the Corinthos and Quartermain families together. Port Charles will lose an honorable man. Willow will be utterly ruined, and the children, Wiley, Amelia, and Scout, will grow up under the shadow of a man whom everyone believes to be their protector, but who is actually a blood-soaked heir. The future of Wiley and Amelia, two innocent children born into the wealthy, powerful families, is more precarious than ever. While life outside continues with a false sense of peace, a storm is quietly rising inside, threatening to wash away the fragile stability that Willow has tried to maintain. The changes taking place are no longer orderly or precautionary, they are mad transformations, driven by a man losing his sanity. A man whose hands once held the trust of his loved ones and are now silently choking the future of the very children he swore to protect, Drew. Subtle but noticeable changes are taking place. And they are no longer just legal procedures or family advice. Drew is interfering with every tiny detail of Wiley and Amelia's lives, from arranging caretakers, controlling their school schedules, to systematically pushing Willow out of her role as their mother. He claims to be doing it for their psychological stability, justifying it as a way to relieve Willow's pressure, but in reality, it is just one layer of a broader manipulation plan to gain total control over the children. These actions, initially soft arrangements, have now turned into strict prohibitions, harsh limitations, and deliberate isolation that cause Willow to retreat further into the shadows. Willow no longer recognizes the man who once shared her pain. Drew is no longer her confidant or surrogate father. He has become a cold overseer, using the law, influence, and hypocritical behavior to tighten every possible path so that Wiley and Amelia cannot escape. What is more dangerous is that Drew no longer sees the children as beings needing love. He views them as tools, as tickets that will lead him to ultimate power. And that, in itself, is the greatest threat to their future. One of the most severe adjustments Drew makes is to begin severing Wiley's ties with other family members. Especially with Michael, the biological father, and with Willow, the mother who sacrificed everything to protect her child. Drew fabricates stories of instability and irresponsibility, even forging medical or legal reports to prove that he is the only one fit to raise the children. In his eyes, all he needs to do is eliminate Michael and neutralize Willow. And then all the wealth and power tied to Wiley and Amelia will be legally transferred into his hands. This story is becoming increasingly tangled because no one can stop Drew in time. Those who once doubted him, like Tracy or Carly, are distracted by other crises. Willow is too exhausted to resist. Michael is unknowingly falling into danger. And while everyone struggles to understand what's going on, Drew continues to adjust his plans, expanding them, turning initial tricks into ever more reckless steps, out of control. He no longer just wants Monica's inheritance. He wants to rewrite the power structure within the entire family, using the two children as the key to open the door that had been closed to him. But the problem is, in this game, Drew doesn't see the pain that Wiley and Amelia are enduring. He doesn't see the confused looks of the children when they are separated from their parents. He doesn't hear the quiet crying at night when Amelia can't find her mother, or when Wiley can no longer see his father. To Drew, their childlike emotions are insignificant. The only thing that matters is that he is getting closer to the position he has longed for his whole life, total domination. That is why every new adjustment Drew makes is evidence that he is crossing boundaries. He is no longer acting as someone fighting for family interests. He is acting as a man willing to sacrifice anything, even the innocence, safety, and childhood of two children, to secure his position. And in the process, Drew's actions are no longer just ambition. They are madness. A calculated madness, smoothed over by hypocritical smiles and cold, indifferent eyes. The future of Wiley and Amelia has never been so fragile. Amid the power games of adults. Behind masks and manipulations, the two children are slowly having their fate bent in ways they cannot resist. And if no one wakes up in time, no one strong enough to stop Drew. Soon Wiley and Amelia will no longer be the carefree children they once were. They will only be living, walking property, owned, controlled, and stripped of their right to choose their own lives. Nina and Michael can no longer stand on the sidelines. What began as vague suspicions about Drew's changing attitude has now become an obvious and urgent threat. They are slowly realizing that Drew is no longer the trustworthy ally who once entered their lives with a calm and responsible appearance. He is now at the center of a chaotic storm, a man who is manipulating everything step by step to seize absolute control over Wiley, Amelia, and even Michael's legacy. And if Nina and Michael do not act quickly, if they do not implement new and decisive measures of control, they could lose everything, from their children, to their reputation, to the very survival of their family. The battle has now begun. No longer just whispered concerns or doubtful glances, this is a real fight, one where the rules are bent, trust is betrayed. And people who once called each other family are now facing off in a game where the stakes could cost them their entire future. Drew no longer hides his moves. He is acting bolder. Intervening deeper into the lives of Wiley and Amelia, openly making decisions that reflect his total control. And this has set off alarm bells for Nina, who, once an observer, is now forced to enter the fray, and for Michael, who realizes that if they do not act now, Drew will erase him from the lives of his own children. The new danger Drew has created lies not only in his legal manipulations or his logically deceptive words, but in the fact that he has begun to restructure the power dynamics within the family itself, sophisticatedly and systematically. He has won the trust of psychologists, legal advisors, even people who once stood by Michael's side. Those who were once neutral have been swayed. Legal documents have been tampered with. Words have been twisted to portray Michael as an incompetent father and Nina as an unstable grandmother. Drew is not just attacking them, he is redefining their image in the eyes of others. But what Drew does not anticipate is that Nina is no longer the weak woman who once begged for forgiveness from Carly or feared the judgment of others. She has suffered too much. Been pushed to the sidelines long enough to understand that the only way to save herself and those she loves is to fight. Nina begins to use her old connections, the influence she has in the media, the secrets she knows, to expose Drew's true nature. She is unafraid to return to the methods of someone who has survived in a world of lies, ready to strike back. Ready to sacrifice her own image to protect Wiley and Amelia. She knows that if she stays silent, Drew will take away everything she holds dear, and this time, she will not back down. Meanwhile, Michael is confronted with an even harsher truth. He is not only being sidelined as a father, but he is also being threatened with the loss of everything he has worked for. The inheritances. The decisions at ELQ, the trust of Monica and Tracy, all of it is now in jeopardy because of the one man he once trusted the most. But Michael is strategic. Having learned toughness from both Sonny and Carly, he begins to fight back. No longer relying on emotional arguments, Michael uses the law, evidence, and his influence to build a case against Drew. He digs into every decision Drew has made, every contradictory statement, every action caught on camera. He is determined to expose Drew's true face to all of Port Charles and bring him into the light. The battle between Michael, Nina, and Drew is no longer just a family conflict. It has become an all-out power struggle, where every action could change the course of the game, where every word could be used as evidence against one another, and where innocent children are drawn in as mere pawns. Port Charles is heating up, not because of the weather, but because every secret is being cooked in the furnace of betrayal, ambition, and pain. Once the fire starts, no one can remain on the sidelines without getting burned. And while Drew continues to push every ethical boundary toward the abyss, Nina and Michael are learning to fight without mercy. They are not just protecting Wiley and Amelia. They are defending justice, protecting the truth, and saving the heart of a family being suffocated by the one they once considered a loved one. The only question left is, are they fast enough, strong enough, and ruthless enough to stop Drew before everything goes too far?